Wanted to drop in with a few quick announcements before we get started. Today, we talked to Jim Higdon, who is the founder of Cornbread Hemp. If you're a longtime fan of the show, you may remember the episode he was on about a year ago. Cornbread Hemp is a Kentucky-based CBD company, and if you use our exclusive promo code Appalachia, APPODLACHIA, at checkout, you will get 20% off your order. I highly, highly recommend utilizing that. Cornbread Hemp is great. I've used it before. I think John has as well, and we really hope you take advantage of it. They've got some great products, including CBD gummies that are going to be coming out soon. Secondly, we talk briefly about the recent attack in Atlanta, primarily targeted on Asian Americans, during the show. I wanted to drop in here to talk a bit about the victims, because that's something that we neglected to do during the show, and we feel, as I'm sure many of you do, that the victims' stories are often the ones that are not told enough. So I wanted to share a little bit about them before the show starts. I pulled a lot of this information from a couple different articles. There's information about some more so than others, and I will do my best to pronounce these names as best as I can. Delana Ashley Juan Gonzalez, who was 33 years old. She was the mother of a 14-year-old son and a 9-month-old daughter, and had worked at a Waffle House just a few doors down from the spa. She was recently married in August and leaves behind her husband. Paul Andre Michaels. He was a local business owner who had been married for over 2 decades and was a former Army veteran, and the business he owned was an electric company. Xiaoji Tan, of 49 years old. She was the owner of Young's Asian Massage and was a licensed massage therapist who immigrated to the U.S. from China several years ago. Dao Yu Feng, 44 years old. I wasn't able to find very much about Dao Yu at the time of this recording, but she worked at Young's Asian Massage, and she was highly regarded by a lot of her colleagues. Hyun Jung Grant, 51. Hyun was a Korean immigrant who also worked at Gold Spa. She leaves behind 2 sons who did not know their father. Suncha Kim, 69 years old. She worked at Gold Spa and enjoyed line dancing in her spare time. She was a grandmother married for over 50 years. She was also an immigrant to the U.S. from Korea and said she did so to, quote, provide us a better education and better life. That was according to a family member who was quoted for the article. Soon Chung Park, 74 years old. Park worked at the Gold Spa and had lived in New York before moving to Atlanta. Young A.U., 63 years old. Yu worked at aromatherapy spa across the street from Gold Spa. She was born in South Korea and met her husband Mac there, who are now divorced, when he was stationed there in the Army. They had 2 sons, and their families remain incredibly close even to this day. And finally, Elcias Hernandez Ortiz, 30 years old. Now, Elcias, I believe, was a survivor, although he, I think, is still in the hospital. Elcias immigrated from Guatemala 10 years ago and had been married to his wife, Flor, for over 10 years. These are not fun to read, and they're important, though, because these stories often never get told. You always hear about the shooter, about how he was having a hard day or whatever, but you hardly hear about the victims, and it's important to highlight their voices because they were people, and a lot of them were immigrants trying to make better lives for themselves and their families. This is awful, and it's something that we hope to continue shedding a light on this show, in addition to the other things we talk about, because we don't want to stay silent about things like this. With that being said, I hope that you all enjoy the rest of the show. It's a really great one. We have a really great conversation with Jim. We have a really great conversation about this topic and several others. So stick around, and we'll talk soon. Let's start by can we talk about Sandwich University?
Sandwich, not even a real university. I double checked.
Yeah, and it's not where you go if you want to excel at Subway as a sandwich artist, just to clarify.
It's not accredited. I thought it was. I was gonna look. There's a Jersey Mike's coming to Parkersburg. Okay, so I'm trying to get ready for that. So I thought I should enroll in a sandwich university to get ready, but it doesn't exist.
Nah, this is some for-profit bullshit. did you ever go there? This is look, just some context. This is a I guess was, I don't even know if it's still open, a sandwich shop
It's still open. It's still open.
right in Morgantown, West Virginia. Did you go there at all when you were at WVU?
Yeah, I think Sandwich U is actually in more places than Morgantown. I think it's
Really?
I think there's one, yeah, I think there's one at Rutgers if I remember correctly, because the dude is from New Jersey. I believe there's
Okay.
one at Rutgers, and I don't remember what else. But the only reason I know that is Sandwich U was on the Food Network once, and I thought it was going to be Morgantown's, but it was Rutgers.
Oh, okay. Well,
But yeah, I
interesting.
went there. I went there a couple times my freshman year. I never went during law school because this is this guy has always been a dickhead. Like it's not.
The
This isn't
owner.
new. Yeah,
Yeah. I
owner
guess we
who he was recently arrested on federal charges because he was part of the riot or the I would say what should I call that the
the capital
destruction.
insurrection is the what the
Yeah,
media has been calling capital insurrection.
yeah, capital insurrection. Plus, he is one of the officers who was killed during that. He is part of the people who assaulted him, so he has charges on that as well.
Yeah, he was arrested in connection. I don't know what the charges were. I'm not sure, but this dude, his name, I don't even remember what it is. It's George Pierre Tanyos. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but
Who cares?
reputation for being an asshole. Call me shocked that the guy whose menu at his restaurant has menu items such as the fat bitch, the fat bastard, and the fat Obama is an asshole that was part of an insurrection. Call me crazy. I'm shocked.
He also, man, throat. He also treats students like garbage. I mean, there have been times where you can walk by and somebody like the sandwich is wrong, and somebody tells him, and he literally throws it at them. Like he is a genuine asshole to the core, and this could not happen to a better guy.
Could not happen to a better guy. Damn, you all right?
Yeah, I'm trying to not die.
Your connection is I guess a little bit better now. It was pretty rough there for a while.
What connection?
Like you're cutting in and out a lot.
Weird.
Whatever. Yeah, I mean, so I just remember the only really notable thing about this place. The only really notable thing about this place is that you could buy shirts that say "I love fat bitches" on them, and so lots of people, freshmen, bought those because they thought it was funny, whatever. But this guy, clearly an asshole, clearly got what he deserved. It sounded like. Oh, wait, we didn't mention the best part of how they identified him.
Oh yeah, he wore a sandwich you shirt.
Yeah. This is like,
Look,
and it's not the first person that they've arrested that wore their company's
no.
shirt.
No, my goal is eventually when I raid the Capitol, I hope to not only have an Appalachia shirt on, but I think I'm just going to put a name on it too. Maybe I'll wear the 18 Husky shirt.
I know that we're trying to build the brand here. Don't know that that's the best way to do it, but I'm not going to tell you how to do.
Okay, but hear me out. Hear me out. Free advertising. We saw that shirt that he was wearing. So
don't know that there's been a spike in sandwich use sales, but
you say that, but there could be.
Well, yeah, you know what? I stand corrected.
There's definitely a possibility.
There is true. That's true. I mean, there's probably some people out there in solidarity that are buying a bunch of fat bitches.
Yeah, 100%.
100%. Well, I mean, had to get that out of there. That was the thing that brought West Virginia into the news this week. Of course, it was that.
And he's not even from what. That's the thing. He's not even from West Virginia. This is one of the most frustrating things about Morgantown. Okay, is some of the worst stuff that happens there are not West Virginians, because New Jersey has a giant population in Morgantown, and like shirts like West fucking Virginia, which is the dumbest, worst shirt that I've ever seen. I hate that shirt, created by a kid from New Jersey. Sandwich U, terrible guy from New Jersey. But you know who gets the blame? West Virginia.
You hate to see it. You really
hate it. I hate it.
Well, I know it was a little bit of a lighthearted subject to start out on. I do want to address the recent events in Atlanta that happened. I guess it would have been, was it last week? Last week, early this week, where yet another dumb white man went and killed a bunch of minorities. This time it was Asian Americans in massage parlors in Atlanta. There's a lot to unpack there, but obviously I think it was clearly a targeted attack against Asian Americans and very despicable in every single way, and highlights what is something that from just statistically has been happening for a long time. We haven't really ever talked about it on this show. Maybe we should have, but just the violence against the Asian American community in this country is at its highest. It sounds like from what I've read, and this is just one of the most high profile examples of it. It's awful.
Violent crimes against Asian Americans is up 150% in the last, I think, year. It's insane the amount that they're being targeted for no reason other than it's just like, what we've been talking about with Black Lives Matter. I mean, these people are being targeted just by their skin color. It's blowing my mind that we continue to have this. And let's not forget the bull crap that sheriff was spewing, where he said, "Oh, he just had a bad day." No, you know what? I've had plenty of bad days. Killed 0 people. That's non-excuse. That sheriff should not be in that position anymore.
That was the arresting sheriff, right? For wherever that jurisdiction was.
Yeah, and he's sitting there going, "Oh, well, he had a bad day," and then come to find out that sheriff on Facebook shares a bunch of racist things with Asian people. So this is something that we had a president who said China virus for the last year. Are we really that surprised that a bunch of racist people don't like Asians because, I don't know, the most powerful man in the world told them not to?
Yeah, and I read somewhere there's been studies that have been done to show just the effect of a president's words on, like, a president expressing negative sentiment towards a group of people and how much negativity and violence upticks amongst that group of people. I think they've done that study with Muslim Americans, others. So it's no surprise, really. I mean, and for Asian people in this country, it's not a shock at all, I'm sure. And it's just shameful and disgusting, and that we're still dealing just with blatant racism it's just disgusting. And it's always been something that's boggled my mind. Truly, it has. And that's probably because I'm white and I really haven't ever experienced racism, but just the concept of it to me is so stupid and disgusting. And it just is, it blows my mind that in this day and age there's still so many people, but there are, and it's systemic, and it's, it shouldn't be surprising, I guess, to me, just based on all the evidence that's in front of me.
Yeah, but I mean, look, we have police officers who are giving excuses to mass murderers. I mean, we have now capped out on stupidity.
Sure. Well, and let me just point the distinction of white mass murderers.
Right. That's a good point, because, almost all of them are.
Yeah, because if this guy was black, and then he would have been a thug,
This is what the conversation, we'd have been looking into him, for the last couple of years, and we'd been looking into his record, and he's had history in the past, but nah, since it's a white guy, it's just he had a bad day. We never saw this coming.
Yeah.
When in fact, the dude was a blatant racist that everyone saw it coming.
Yeah, they gave the Daniel Powder defense. 'Cause you had a bad day, take a bad. Yeah. That's kind of like the Twinkie defense from the Harvey Milk murder case. It's a load of bullshit, and it's only done because people in power, or white people in general, they need an excuse. They feel, this sheriff felt obligated to give this kid an excuse. Probably, one, because the sheriff is also racist, but two, because they didn't, they got to protect their own. This is so fucking stupid. And I mean, I'm glad that there's been so much outrage about that, but boy, rooting out this kind of stuff in law enforcement is one thing, but just rooting this out in general is a whole other, and I I don't even know, man. This is. I mean, I'm glad that the attention has been brought to the racism against Asian Americans. It should have never come to this, and this is terrible. And obviously, it's not a good thing that's happened.
Yeah, I mean, we're at a point now where things are things are getting worse. For the last 4 years, we focused on the Black Lives Matter movement, which is obviously where we should. But then now we're starting to find, like, obviously racism doesn't stop there, and now people are moving on to target and kill other minorities just because they can. It's just another angry white guy with a gun. And, it's a story that we've been telling for years. I mean, shit, I was born in 1992, and there are probably more mass shootings in the United States that I can think of than years I've been on this planet. That's
Easily.
odd. That's something that we should not be living with. And it's because part of it is, in this country, we really do have, the problem's twofold. One, we have a really, really, really bad racism problem that no one wants to admit, especially other white people in power don't want to admit that. And two, we have a really terrible mental health problem in this country as well, where we're allowing people, to own weapons when they're not mentally capable, even if on paper they are. They're just not.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a problem that people acknowledge but they don't address, and it shows, obviously. Well, I hate to start things out, I guess, on such a horrible negative note, but sometimes you have to do that in this world, and we want to make sure that we're not silent about this, and that people know that we are following in where our thoughts and go out to these victims as families, and that they deserve justice, and justice is putting this fucker in prison forever and not letting something like this happen again. Yeah. Well, but with that, let's turn to announcements, John. We got a handful of new patrons. Do you want to read them off?
3 new Patreon members. We're so thankful that you're here. We're up to like 115 now, 150 Patreon members, which is just blowing my mind. But our 3 newest ones are Amanda, Jordan, and Chris. Thank you so much for the support. If anyone else is interested, patreon.com/Appalachia. We have a bunch of exclusives on there. We have merch that's included that Patreon now has taken over and will send out, including stickers and shirts. There's a bunch of stuff, and we're constantly upgrading our Patreon benefits as we go.
That is true, and we do an exclusive every single week. This week, grab bag, baby. We'll be talking about NCAA. Might even throw in a little bit about the Confederate statue bill in West Virginia. Who knows? That might make it in there. John's shaking his head. I think it will, because I've got a great solution to that I want to share with the world. But it won't be shared with the world, just Patreon members, so go check it out. Anyway, John, got a great guest today. Returning champion, our first returning guest we've ever had, Jim Higdon, the founder of Cornbread Hemp, a organic hemp company in the great state of Kentucky. He joins us to talk about the state of cannabis reform in Appalachia, his company, what they've been doing during the pandemic, how they've survived as a small business, the CBD industry in general, and what we can expect for the future, and, of course, do a little bit of dunking on JD Vance in his upcoming Senate race. Cool. So, without further ado, our interview with Jim Higdon. And I think when we last talked, it was probably just about a year ago, right? I think you were our first interview in quarantine, I believe. John, correct me if I'm wrong.
I think that's right.
It's wild. I didn't realize that. It's wild.
Yeah, it's been a while. It has been a while.
But it's funny, like, not funny. It's interesting to note. We've definitely got customers here at Cornbread Hemp from listeners to Appalachia. People who listen to you have come to us, and so just want to give a shout out to your listeners and everyone, in the Appalachian region who are looking for CBD products, because we definitely connected.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Yeah, and I know that I can speak for both of us that we have a lot more listeners now than we did back then. So hopefully we can get you some more on that.
I guess the podcast world is kind of like the CBD world. Like it's one of the industries that was benefited by the lockdown because people were like looking for what we did.
Yeah, yeah, I'll tell you. There's a couple things, like obviously, like hillbilly elegy. We can get into that. Well, that helped us a little bit,
Oh,
but
okay.
I think once people started establishing routines again, because all the routine disruption, I think probably hurt the numbers a little bit. But once people started establishing routine again, I mean, we've seen constant growth pretty much every week almost. So it's been really cool.
That's wild.
Well, cool. I'm glad that you're back with us because this is a really interesting time we're in right now in the cannabis world. And by the way, I don't know if you listened to the interview we did with Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, but
I love that guy though.
He harangued us a bit for calling it cannabis. He's like, you got to call it weed so that you're not like, what, John, how did he word it so that we're not sounding like elitist with it or to sound like to call it what people are used to calling it and sort of destigmatize it.
Call it what people already call it. Yeah.
Yeah. But we can call it cannabis here. That was a funny thing that he mentioned, but I'm interested, go ahead.
No. Finish your thought.
Oh, I was just going to kind of get your take just generally on what's changed, if anything, in the past year, and from your view, dealing like in the parts of that industry and like Kentucky specifically.
So the Kentucky legislature has concluded yet another session without passing a medical marijuana bill. So we now lag nearly every border state that we have, including West Virginia, on this issue. So yeah, big shocker, big shocker. It was the short session, not a revenue generating session. So there is some reason to think that it has better chance in a long session and even number of years. So, we're back at it. But, at a national level, I was surprised to see that Senate Democratic leadership, Schumer, Cory Booker, Ron Wyden, really talking about prioritizing cannabis legalization in the Senate this year. So we'll see, how that develops. And then this recent story that White House staffers are getting asked to resign because of past cannabis use.
Yeah.
It doesn't help, but it's fascinating because the congressional Democratic backlash against like, hey, what are you doing? This is exactly the point. Like, it's actually like shining a light on, like, here's your opportunity to lead by example. And you're playing grandpa, and it is not 1985 anymore. What's going on?
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No. Just that's where we are, is like the Biden White House is sidelining staffers for cannabis use while, we're all trying to, decide like what word it is that we're going to call this thing that's about to be legal. So are
we really shocked though?
Hey, it's just noteworthy that that's where we are. No, I'm not shocked. No, it's frustrating and disappointing, but it's not shocking.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. The one when Biden won, the election, obviously, we were very open on who we were supporting, but that was, that's one of the downfalls of Joe Biden is, a lot of his social policy kind of lives in the 1980s.
Yeah.
He's continued to push that same rhetoric. And I mean, I think we kind of knew. I did not realize that he was going to start getting rid of staffers because, that I didn't see coming. But I think that's always going to be a problem. But I do have an interesting question for you because you're in a I guess unique spot with CBD, right? So you're a CBD company. Obviously things are going to hopefully start transitioning into, maybe legal recreational weed. Does your company change at all if that happens?
We've really positioned Cornbread Hemp to be a cannabis company on the legal hemp side of the dividing line. And so, we're going to make products as legal as we can make them as that legality changes. Already, state agricultural commissioners are petitioning Congress to move the THC threshold from its current level of 0.3%, which is arbitrary and low and stupid, to at least 1% to give farmers some wiggle room. We can make some really good CBD products with 1% THC.
Yeah.
That's and so. Point. So that's step one. And then as you know, as the cannabis plant becomes more legal and we can make products that we can sell across state lines, that's what we're going to do.
Okay. Yeah. I've always wondered about that because obviously you right now are handcuffed into a lot of the products that you can make versus maybe some of the things that you have on the back burner, like you're ready to develop or you really want to develop, but you can't right now, especially, with the state that you're in. But, I always wonder that because there are a lot of CBD companies. Most of them obviously are not to your all's level in terms of the products you use, but I always wonder what's going to happen with some of these companies. Like, are they going to transition?
Well, some of them are dead set against it.
Oh, okay.
There's some of these, I'm not going to go in here and name names, but there's hemp
Right.
brands and hemp associations who do not want further legalization of cannabis and who do not want hemp products associated with the legal amount of THC that can come along with them. It's really frustrating that people have staken a claim in the hemp industry and want it to freeze and not move any further, which is one, unrealistic, and two, kind of frustrating and backward, and something that needs to not win in the grand sort of debate of ideas. Like, we're only in a spot on this road to full legalization. This is where we are. It's not where we're going.
Is that like a purely a business decision on their part? Like, are they worried that if cannabis is legalized, they're going to be losing business to that?
Maybe it's also, there's part of this market that's benefiting from CBD products that are still uncertain and afraid of the cultural war implications of cannabis. Like, like they benefit from CBD, but have convinced themselves that something different than the marijuana they were against during the Vietnam War. And some of these companies are taking advantage of that incorrect notion and want to exist in that space of CBD isolate without THC because it's safe, it's good, it's it doesn't have THC in it, and THC is bad, which is just a backward way of looking at things and not something that's going to win out in the long term.
Yeah, that's I mean, it's not funny, haha funny, but it's funny to think about how prolific and common things like opioids are in places where we live, and there's less pushback to that than there is to marijuana, which I mean is just mind numbing in and of itself. I'm wondering, maybe this is more related to Kentucky, but one of the conversations we had with Lieutenant Governor Fetterman in Pennsylvania was how much their state's going to lose out because neighboring states have legalized weed. I mean, if you look, New Jersey was the most recent one. They border Philadelphia, huge market. Just go across the bridge, get that, and you lose out on tax revenue. Has Kentucky? I mean, is there conversations around that? Like, what are the impediments to something like that happening in Kentucky? Is it a cultural issue with the Republican lawmakers, or is it a lot of things?
I think it's like 80% law enforcement being
really okay.
Here. Like, I just think like the power of the law enforcement lobby and legislators swooning at law enforcement in uniform, it just like really sets us back and prevents us from doing what we need to do. The good thing about Kentucky is we have this hands-on understanding of the Bourbon Trail and how the Bourbon Trail has brought in 1 million tourists a year, and it's really easy to visualize what that means for cannabis. And how we can supplement and supplement the Bourbon Trail with another agricultural product that people would like to tour and sample. And so, the first step of that's passing a medical marijuana law. The second step is ensuring that medical marijuana law grants reciprocity. So reciprocity would mean that anyone with a medical card in another state could access the medical cannabis available here in this state.
Right.
And so that begins the opportunity to let people from other states come to Kentucky and experience what Kentucky's good at. And that's something that would then progress over time. But it's not something that, especially, what we've learned in the hemp industry is it takes a few years to make the supply chain work. Like, you've got to have these steps in the supply chain in place in order to support, a robust market demand. So, it takes a while.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the Bourbon Trail because that's definitely something that Tennessee recently copied off of to do the Tennessee Whiskey Trail because they saw the value in it. And you're so right about that. I, in thinking about Appalachia in general, I mean, it's not unrealistic to have these things happen in places like Kentucky. I mean, if you look at West Virginia, they did manage to pass a medical marijuana legislation, and in Virginia, they just legalized marijuana. Now, granted, I think the actual effective date or date when retail stores can open is like 2022 or 23, but still, they did something in a state that was traditionally more conservative and more against that type of thing. So even though a state is conservative as Kentucky, I mean, it's, it's not, I guess, unrealistic to think that could happen there. But it's interesting you mentioned the police or the law enforcement. I was wondering if you could maybe elaborate a little bit on that. Like, what is their chief argument against it?
I mean, decriminalizing, like legalizing hemp flower, legalizing marijuana, legalizing or decriminalizing marijuana. Law enforcement like to beat up on black people. And the easiest way to harass a black person is to say that you smelled marijuana. And if the smell of marijuana is no longer a crime, then law enforcement can no longer harass black people.
Ain't that John, I'm sure you have read plenty of criminal procedure cases in law school where it was always like probable cause or whatever was always, oh, I smelled marijuana. Always.
Yeah, that's like every bar question ever. Like any criminal procedures, like, and they always, and even the questions are racist, like for the bar, because they'll use predominantly black names in these questions too, and you can tell like what they're aiming at, like they're trying to go off old cases, and it's just sad that the old cases and the current cases are still targeting black people.
Yeah, in 2019, the Washington Post published a map, county by county, of America of marijuana possession enforcement, and it's fascinating. Kentucky, like states around Kentucky, had some significant county by county marijuana enforcement. Georgia particularly bad, but Kentucky had like California levels of non-enforcement, except in the metropolitan counties where black people are.
Yep.
So, like one of the real troubles of getting marijuana legalization passed in Kentucky is white legislators in rural counties don't understand the marijuana prohibition to be a problem because their constituents don't experience it as a problem because their constituents are white. So they're blind to how law enforcement selectively enforces marijuana crime on the street because they only enforce it in communities where they are not.
That is such a good point. John, I'll turn it over to you. I've got one more kind of related question to this, which is thinking about lawmakers maybe in rural areas that don't see that impact. I'm wondering, because Kentucky, for a long time was a fairly big tobacco state, kind of like how North Carolina is. And so there's that industry has obviously declined with the declining use of tobacco. I mean, are there people maybe in those rural areas that used to be tobacco farmers that could see an opportunity with cannabis, with hemp that might be like compelling voices, or is that just like not enough to overcome the law enforcement arm on the political system?
It's a very good question. It's got a couple different answers. So let me start with, before I started Cornbread Hemp, I was the author of the Cornbread Mafia book, which is, I think maybe how we got to know each other in the first place. In Cornbread Mafia, I report that the collapse of the tobacco economy in the 70s left giant swaths of unemployment in rural Kentucky. In Marion County, where I'm from, where the Cornbread Mafia was based in 1980, the unemployment rate was something like 18.5% on the way to 20. And a lot of these guys who were unemployed became engaged in the illicit cultivation of cannabis to support their families. They were all big Catholic families that needed supporting. So historically, there's definitely a connection between the collapse of the tobacco economy and the rise of Kentucky cannabis. And then more recently, the hemp economy has done something very similar and given farmers a new crop that they feel like they could profit on. But the problem is lots of people got stung because the FDA regulations haven't come in, because the USDA regulations limits on THC are too low. So farmers are having to destroy crops. Farmers can't find buyers for crops. So they've grown a lot of hemp, but not a lot of hemp has been sold because the marketplace has been stunted by federal regulation. So I do think that it has helped give these farmers a taste and have those farmers then lean in the ears of their rural legislators to be like, we need more. This needs to be more legal than it is for us to for this to be a viable crop because, politicians up to and including Mitch McConnell went to a lot of places and made a lot of promises about what hemp can do for the farming economy, for farming families, and those promises really haven't paid off yet.
That's a fair point. I want to transition a little bit. I'm sure that we'll get back on the topic of weed, but and CBD and THC. But I want to transition real quick. I know that you're obviously you still consider yourself a small business, right?
We're a family owned business.
Okay. Is most of your sales online?
Yeah.
So what'd you see in terms of your business and COVID? I always like to ask business owners, did you see an uptick or a downtick or anything like that?
So it's really fascinating now that we're like at the 1 year anniversary of the COVID lockdown. Our retail sales really cratered. We kept some of the retailers, our strongest retailers, partners. We have kept, and even to some extent grown those accounts. Rainbow Blossom here in Louisville, particularly natural health food stores like them, independently owned natural health food stores have been the retailing partner that has stayed with us through COVID. But to a large extent, come on in. We're at work. We're doing work. That's my business partner. Say hi, Eric.
Hey.
Hey, how's it going?
The floor. Regular
stuff. And then our online orders just like went through the roof. Right away when the lockdown happened and people started freaking out, like one of the things that happened is like we got bananas orders like in mid to late March of last year. Like it just happened. So we grew our business all last year. Our fourth quarter and like holiday season was crazy good. There's a lot of people giving CBD as gifts these days, and like Mother's Day, Father's Day, also really interesting. Like adult children giving their parents, hemp as like a safe cannabis product, like a way to talk to their parents about cannabis. So Mother's Day, Father's Day has been big for us last year, and we're anticipating this year too. So that's really interesting. But the other thing I was telling Chuck about is last year, in addition to our online sales growing, is we launched a crowdfund campaign and raised $400,000 from 900 investors. And, a lot of that was also due to the lockdown, like people looking for new ways to invest their money that wasn't in the stock market that was experiencing a lot of volatility last year.
Yeah. I think that's one of the benefits, obviously, of being a predominantly online company. I know that you all do have retail sales, but I see your stuff a lot online, running deals or on Instagram or whatever.
Right on.
And so the other thing I want to know is, what's the plan moving forward for your company? I mean, where do you see yourself, a year from now? Obviously you're still dealing with COVID. So, can you take advantage of that or, do you think growth is going to continue? What's the idea?
We're getting a lot of great press right now. So our press is really increasing our first time customer flow. So, we're just, ramping that up. So, we're on health.com, we're on Healthline. We just got we've had 2 mentions in Rolling Stone. That seemed to be something that might continue. So there's a few more opportunities that we're working on in terms of getting some media attention, long-term, like evergreen media attention, so that when people are searching Google for CBD products, we're more likely to come up. And so that's the online play. Like, like now that we have an excellent product that's USDA certified organic, full spectrum, flower only extracted, which is a very big deal because most of these places are using a whole plant extraction where they grind up the whole plant, leave stems and everything, and then pelletize it and then make an extraction out of those pellets. But we're just using the flower of the hemp plant, which is the part that everyone wants. And so our products taste like cannabis flowers because that's all that's in them. So there's no cover flavors, no peppermint or mint chocolate or anything like this that some of these other brands use to cover the flavors of their products, because we don't need to do that. So we already have an excellent product. We're rolling out CBD gummies next month, which is super exciting. So it's just a matter of like getting more eyeballs and getting more attention. So the other part of this year that'll happen is that retail will start to open back up. As the vaccine rolls out, people are going to want to be back in retail, want to begin talking to people again in retail settings that's safe. As soon as it's safe to be indoors, without masks on again. So, we anticipate building out our retail. Natural health food stores is the retail partner that really speaks well to our product because they have knowledgeable staff. Because we have the USDA organic seal in our products, that's something that resonates both with the staff and with customers of natural health food stores. Those are the sorts of people who prioritize organic products in their lives. So, so we anticipate more media, more online, and reinvigorating our retail program.
That's great. That's really good to hear. We're happy to know that that your business is at least thrived. It sounds like under really difficult conditions. And
I mean, it's been it hasn't been easy. It's been tough, but we did a good, in retrospect, we did a lot last year to prepare ourselves for the opening, for the great reopening. Whatever this is that's around the corner, we're ready for it.
Right. Well, before we get on to some other topics, we're happy to obviously plug Cornbread Hemp. If you have any promo codes or anything that you want us to push out to our audience, be happy to do so.
I haven't created it yet, but I'll create it as soon as we're done here. Like Appalachia for 20% off.
Yeah, perfect. We'll see if we can get you any hits.
Just the code of your program, plug it in at checkout, and then we'll give you guys shout outs.
Perfect. Sounds awesome. Well, I mean, I'd be remiss if we didn't talk at least a little bit about our friend JD John Dammit Vance on this program, because he is back in the news. It's not just bringing somebody up just to bring him up. I mean, your neighboring state of Ohio going to have a Senate vacancy with Rob Portman retiring in 2022. And it looks like JD Vance is running. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? We have some thoughts.
I have thoughts like I am very much going to enjoy this Republican primary because I think he will get beat with a shoe.
I don't. It's so funny to watch sort of the evolution in slow but real time, because he was always viewed as a reasonable Republican, not really a never Trumper, but kind of. And then he just started teetering along that edge, and you can see on Twitter he's going to do interviews with Dinesh D'Souza and Charlie Kirk and those types, and he's just going full on MAGA all the way now.
Well, I have a lot less time on Twitter than I used to, but I did see him defending the memory of Rush Limbaugh on the day he died. Like, hey guys, don't make fun of Rush Limbaugh. Like, have some respect. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. What a joke. Yeah, that guy. Yeah, I can't wait for that Republican primary because I know what's going to happen. Like, JD Vance is going to run. He's going to try and come off as this super MAGA pro-Trumper guy, and then one of his opponents is going to buy a billboard and throw up all of his pro Barack Obama stuff that he's spoken about, like how he respects Barack Obama and how he's such a great guy. They're going to twist that and turn it into whatever they want. And I can't wait to watch him have to squirm, because he's either going to have to double down on what he said, or he's going to have to somehow come up with an excuse for it. And I love it.
I have nothing good to say about that guy.
I'd say good luck defending Barack Obama in a Republican primary in this day and age, but
that's the thing, is he's going to have to. I mean, look, at the time, it was when JD said it, I'll admit, I was like, okay, cool. Like, at least, obviously his book is terrible and he's not a great guy, but at least he said something that I can agree with, where he can at least show some respect for a former president. And I think he was president at the time, but now you just see who JD is. Like, he's the fakest person, because he can change just like that. He tries to be a chameleon, but he's not good at it.
That's a good way of putting it. I mean, there were definitely signs in the book, like like he specifically like gives a shout out to Mitch Daniels as his ideal politician. And like of all the people in the world to hitch a wagon to in print in a book that will last forever, it's Mitch Daniels. Like this is your guy.
Yeah,
Like
right.
That's his guy.
That, and then you know the heaping on praise for payday lenders was always a good one. My favorite thing that he's doing though now, which I think you'll find interesting, is, and he's trying to carry this from his, I guess, life before Yale, and he's saying he keeps railing against the what is it he calls them, the elite, God, John, help me out, I'm trying to think of the actual terminology, the ruling class or the ruling elite, ruling class
elites.
yeah,
yeah.
which is funny because this is a guy,
Yale Law School grad JD Vance,
who just cut a deal for a Netflix movie based off his best-selling novel and got a $10 million injection into his super PAC from Peter Thiel, the founder of PayPal. Yeah, tell me more, please.
Yeah, you know, like, I mean, it's as a white man, it's so frustrating to see white male fragility in such open display. Like, just, you know, like, it's just so sad. It's just, it's really surprising as someone who is from Kentucky, who did some time in Ivy League graduate programs. It can be really disorienting encountering such an empowered multicultural atmosphere. And you have two options: either you enjoy the multicultural atmosphere and approach new people from new places as equals, or you react against it and feel like you're put upon and that you're the victim all of a sudden. And you know, I just, as someone who's had a similar experience, I just don't understand how you come out of that rejecting multiculturalism as a value add to this country, and instead feel like you're some sort of victimized white man. Like I just don't get
it. Yeah, his I don't get him either, because when you look at his his breakdown, obviously I shared one of his quotes the other day, which I think is just the best thing he's ever written in his entire life, and that's the fact that now that he's gone to Yale and now that he's successful, people stop him and tell him that they just think he's such a genius, but he thinks that that's bullshit. So he made sure to put that, like, that people think he's a genius, but he's humble enough to say he's not. That's
Wow.
still my favorite thing.
That's it's like passive aggressive narcissism. Is that what we're gonna?
I look. There's a lot of things that I dislike about JD Vance, but his level of narcissism is almost refreshing, to the point where it makes me feel like a better person. And so, for me, JD Vance is sometimes kind of like the when you had a bad day, like, and usually you're going to listen to like Counting Crows or something, like you
That's
just
a
had
bad day. That is a
you
rough
just had
day.
a really bad day, but instead just go read JD Vance's recent tweets, and you'd be like, shit, I'm a good person, because it's gonna get you there. I promise.
Well, I just saw, like, I didn't see the tweet because one of you on your official Twitter account just shotted like JD Vance and retweeted Charlie Kirk, and
yeah,
not what the content of that tweet was, just that it happened.
Just that happened. Yeah,
that's all you needed. That's all you needed.
That's it. That's all was needed.
Oh man, what a guy! What a guy! Well, Jim, appreciate it as always. You're a first returning guest. Very, very delighted to have you talk shop and talk about all the things we spoke about. We will put a link to Cornbread Hemp in our show notes with the promo code and everything. Tell our listeners, be sure to check it out. I know that we got a good response last time, so hoping for even more on that. And appreciate all that you do. It's really always interesting talking to you.
Yeah, man. Like, I'm looking forward to other side of the vaccine. We can start circulating a little bit. Maybe do one of these in person one day.
Hell yeah.
Sweet.
All right, always good to have Jim on the show. John, we're gonna kick right into it. It's been a busy week. There's lots of things to have beef with. I'm sure that you've got one siloed into your sights. What do you have?
Ladies and gentlemen, live from Parkersburg, West by God, Virginia, it's the 18 Husky himself, Beef with Big John.
And this just hit me as we were talking. We were doing an interview with Jim. I have beef. I can't even imagine this, but I have beef with politicians who won't effectively just come out and say that they're running. I am so sick. And look, I'm gonna say there are Democrats I'm not happy with right now either.
You mean like Charles Booker?
Charles Booker.
Okay, just want to make sure. John Fetterman announced.
Well, he didn't at first. He said that he was looking into it and he started raising money. Here's the difference. I'm not actually upset with Charles Booker because he's not raising money. He's not actively out there, trying to get money for a campaign he's not sure he's running. I think he's doing it the right way. Wrong way, in my opinion, is people like JD Vance and John Fetterman. I didn't like that. You shouldn't raise money before you announce your actual campaign or the fact that you're even running. Because look, I don't think a lot of people realize this, but when that money is donated, let's say that person decides not to run, Chuck. They can donate it to any other candidate that they want. That money becomes a super powerful tool.
I've never really liked that aspect about, because I mean, even when somebody runs and they lose, they can still take that money and give it to somebody, at least federally. I don't know how all states are, some do it differently, but federally, it's, I know that that's the case, and I always hated that because I want my money to go to one person only, but that's the unfortunate nature of campaign finance, so you hate to see it.
That's why a lot of these guys do it. Go back and look at the history of people announcing and raising money. They never run, so they donate it to another person that you absolutely will hate even worse. That's what they do, and that's what blows my mind. Luckily, obviously, John Fetterman, we kind of knew he was going to run, but I think anymore, it's kind of this. I don't know, this show people put on where it's like, oh, I'm thinking about running, and then they want to get the wheels turning a little bit. I don't know. At least a bad taste in my mouth because that's real. That's working Americans' money. And so whether you're a Democrat or Republican, to me, you should not raise money until you are running for office. Point blank, because that money needs to go to you, the candidate. That's why people are giving you that money, not for you to get it and either hold it or give it to another candidate that they probably don't like, or at least don't like as much as you. They wouldn't have given that money to that person. And so that's the problem, is like they don't issue major refunds with these things. Like they made it clear when I ran for office that I could do whatever I wanted with that money in terms of giving it to another candidate. I donated money to charity as we talked about last year, which is crazy that was last year. And it's so annoying. And like I said, Charles Booker, I think, is doing it the right way. He's still focusing on his nonprofit while, he's running it, and he's not actively seeking funds for his campaign currently. I fully believe Charles Booker really is thinking about whether or not he should run right now. But there are a lot of people who don't. They just do it as a show, and then they immediately start raising money. And that, to me, is just not right. I think that all money left over should have to be donated, like to a nonprofit, to a charity. Make that money actually work.
Campaign finance reform idea. You designate the charity it'll go to at the beginning when you file your paperwork. Yep, there you go. But make it non-tax deductible.
Not to another candidate.
Campaign finance reform idea. You designate the charity it'll go to at the beginning when you file your paperwork. Know. Yep, there you go.
Yep,
but make it non-tax deductible.
Right.
Well, and it's probably because he had to stop taking money from pharmaceutical companies.
Right, because it shouldn't be. It's part of the campaign.
Damn straight.
that's the thing is, you could. I know that people obviously want to go after like Citizens United very quickly, but there are little things you can do to make it to where people will stop fighting Citizens United as much, because they'll force them to donate that money rather than either hold on to it or to donate to other people. Don't allow campaigns to go into debt. I think that's the dumbest thing. It makes no sense to me why they can do this. Pat Morrissey is still paying off a campaign he can't afford. And he lost that race. Right, yeah, Cardinal can't pay off his bills. That's the problem.
Yeah, because they got the shit suit out of them.
And yeah, they're busy paying his wife.
Well, that's right. Yeah. Well, then the Purdue can't give any money because they went bankrupt or whatever. Sad times for him. Hard to be Pat Morrissey. That's right. Hard times for the pharmaceutical execs. Anyway, on that note, we'll wrap it up. Thank you again for listening to Appalachia. Check us out on all the social medias, Patreon, our store. We got some dope shirts coming out, including some dope shirts for 420. So there you have it, folks. We'll see you again next week.